I'm going to show you how to plan an entire week's worth of dinners in a way that'll take you about 30 minutes using a few simple tricks. If you're a parent like myself, a homeowner, a full time employee, or just someone juggling a variety of things day to day, it's not uncommon to find yourself in the position where you're scrambling to decide what to make for dinner each night. I know I've been there a lot. And this simple meal planning process is what has helped solve the problem for me. And I think it can help you too if you find yourself stressing over dinner time meals. And this isn't just for time management. There's also evidence to suggest this might be a strategy that can help folks eat a healthier diet and possibly even lose weight, if that's something you're interested in. This paper published in 2017 found that meal planning can help with time challenges related to home cooking and is associated with eating a higher quality diet and a lower body weight status. And this paper from 2020 found meal planning frequency was associated with greater weight loss. And this doesn't need to take hours or be overly complicated. 30 minutes, once a week, or even once every 2 weeks is all it takes. First, let's talk about what you'll need, and then we can get into the planning process, which consists of 3 parts, each with 3 steps. The goal with our materials is to keep from having to try to go back and remember some recipe you came across, trying to remember what TikToker posted that tasty looking meal, and once you do remember, scrolling through it to find the specific one could take 30 minutes in itself, especially if you get sucked in and start mindlessly scrolling. We've all been there. So here's all you need: a phone or a computer, and I recommend if you have a computer, use that instead of the phone. The chances of you getting sucked into the dark hole of social media is way less likely. And then you'll need a pen and paper, and that's it. And a ruler if you want to be particular. I personally like using note cards, especially the bigger ones, which I'm out of right now, so I'll be using these smaller ones today. But you could use a notebook or whatever else you have on hand. But note cards will give you a better experience, in my opinion. If you want to get fancy, you could purchase recipe cards that look like this from your local stationery store or on Amazon or Staples or wherever you purchase your stationery supplies. And I mean, you can do this on your computer or phone, but I really recommend using a pen and paper. If you're using these note cards or recipe cards, you're going to need 11 cards. And that's all the supplies you need: a laptop, a pen or pencil, and paper, and if you want, a ruler. Put on the tea, let's make a plan. You could purchase cookbooks or use social media for recipes, but cookbooks obviously come with a financial cost, and social media can be hard to get all the information for a recipe in a quick and efficient way, and we risk using up our 30-minute planning session scrolling through funny videos. Recipe bloggers have made this process so incredibly wonderful. There are a ton of high quality free recipes online, but that can also be a problem in itself. There are so many. Where do you start? Let's get into the step-by-step strategy to help solve that problem. Take your first card and put it landscape and indicate space for 3 columns plus a little space at the bottom. Now we're gonna write down the keywords related to the meals you enjoy and want to cook in the first column on your card. These keywords should specify the food cultures you enjoy: Korean, Moroccan, Italian, Mediterranean, and so on. Write as many as you'd like. That's step 1 of this first part. In the next column, we're going to write down any goals you have for your overall dietary pattern. This could be things like if you want to eat more vegetables, for example, you could write down plant forward if you still want to have some meat, or plant based if you want more exclusively vegetarian or vegan recipes. This could be things like high protein if you're a really active person or working out lots. Write down as many of these as you'd like. That's step 2. For step 3, in the third and last column, write down any allergies or foods you dislike or want to avoid. Like if you don't like spicy food, first, shame on you, but you could write that here. And a little bonus is in the bottom space. I like to note the days in the week I know I have time constraints. So if I know Tuesdays and Thursdays are particularly busy, I'll write down Tuesdays and Thursdays as my time constraint days. Try not to overthink these first 3 steps. You can always revisit it in future weeks, but put down what first comes to mind. Analysis paralysis can be a thing here. And that's part 1 of this process. So you should have a note card that looks something like this. The digital one is way better than my handwritten one, hey? This becomes our search tool, which leads us into part 2 of this process. Step 1 of part 2 is to open up your computer, go into Google, and open 3 or 4 tabs. Step 2 is in each tab, we're going to search using one term from each column of our first card. So something like plant-based Korean meals, not spicy. We're going to use the terms from our note card to do that in each tab. Now, your goals column, you could include more than one, like plant-based, high protein, Korean meals, not spicy. 7 of your remaining 10 cards are for the meals that you find for dinners for the week. And that's our next step. For the first week you do this, what I like to do is simply write down the name of the website and the recipe title so you can easily look it up later when you go to cook the meal. That way you can try the recipe before you take the time to write down the ingredients and steps. If you end up liking the recipe, the following week when you do your 30-minute meal planning, then you can write down the whole recipe so you don't have to keep looking it up. And after a couple of weeks of this, you'll have a good collection of recipes, and you can start doing this recipe discovery part of the planning process whenever you need rather than every week. So this step is the bulk of the 30 minutes, but try to keep in mind this is just for 1 week. You can always look for more recipes or swap out later. Pick what looks good and is suitable for your level of cooking skills. An additional tip here with that in mind is if you are an inexperienced cook, add beginner to your searches. If you added time-constrained days on your first card, in one of the tabs include quick or one pot or speedy to your search to find fast recipes for the days you highlighted as time-constrained days at the bottom of that first card. If you're interested in high-protein plant-based meals, I've compiled the recipes that I'm currently cooking in a free PDF linked in the description. It gives a quick summary of the meal and a link to where you can find it online. That way you can basically skip this step. On to part 3 of this process. The remaining 3 cards are for you to make a schedule, make a grocery list, and the last is for a super handy trick to have up your sleeve, and more on that in a minute. So step 1 of part 3 is to create your grocery list as you find the recipes you want to cook. So this meal planning can double as your grocery list planning. Step 2 of part 3 is to take one of the 2 remaining cards and put the days of the week on the card. Then to assign your recipes you've selected to those days so that you don't have to think about it. You just refer to your card and you know what you're cooking that day. You can leave it somewhere handy like on your kitchen counter. And the last step for part 3 is to take your final card with you to the grocery store when you do your shop and write down on the card 1 to 3 ideas of pre-prepared meals that align with your preferences card and your budget. These are for the days when things have gotten really crazy or you're just not feeling like cooking or life has happened and you need something ready to rock rather than to spend too much time preparing a meal. If it's something non-perishable, you could just purchase it when you do your shop and keep it on hand, which is a great idea. A frozen protein source and frozen veggies can be made in 15 minutes without much effort. Or better yet, a frozen burrito that will create little to no dishes can be a great option here. If it's something perishable, prepackaged salads and sandwiches and things like that, write it down so that you don't have any guesswork when the busy day arrives, and this might just save you from the drive-thru. That way, when you do eat out, it can be because you want to, not because you feel like it's the only option. Now, if it's not apparent already, I live in rural Canada, so Uber Eats and all that kind of stuff just doesn't exist here. I've honestly never used a delivery service like that, so I don't know if they're budget friendly or what that's like, but that could be an option here as well. The point is to have a list ready to go to take the stress out of the already busy day. And you're ready to go. Part 1. You listed your preferences of the food cultures and styles you enjoy, your dietary goals, and any allergies or foods you're hoping to avoid, and you highlighted any days you know ahead of time are going to be time constrained. In part 2, you hit the World Wide Web using your list from part 1 as your search tool and found 7 recipes you want to try, writing down the name of the site and the name of the recipe. That way you can try them out before you write down the whole ingredient list and steps, using your cards to quickly pull up the recipe when it's time to cook it for the first time. And in part 3, you use that recipe discovery process to create your grocery list, assign recipes to each day of the week, and plan for the inevitable day when life happens and you just want something quick and easy. And you absolutely can just take your time and slowly go through this meal planning process, but if you're on a time crunch, you can complete these steps in right around 30 minutes. And as a bonus, if you're interested in high-protein plant-based meals, you can use the recipe idea PDF linked in the description to completely skip that step and save yourself some time. I've also created a summary document of this process, also linked below. Now, this is a really cool meal planning process that you can build off of in a bunch of ways, and that you can also apply to the other meals of the day as well. It also can integrate into your budget planning and other things. All stuff we're going to be talking about in the future. Before we wrap up this video, I want to quickly share with you one of my favorite resources related to this topic. Fair warning, this is going to be geared towards plant-based eating because that's the dietary pattern that I follow. A YouTube channel that provides really great recipe ideas and walks you through the cooking process, the whole food plant-based cooking show. It's a new channel to me, but it's this absolutely lovely couple that's been doing this show for 10 years, and I so wish I would have found it sooner. I highly recommend checking it out. We recently made their carrot hot dog recipe, and it sounds weird, but it was so good. What do you think?
That's so weird.
Does it taste like carrot?
A little bit.
A little bit.
It's really good. It has the right like texture. That's good.
I will also say that the descriptions of their videos are incredibly helpful. Free printable recipes and an overview of how to create the recipe, and they also have a bunch of free recipes on their website as well. A great resource to level up your cooking. And lastly, if you ever need a little pick-me-up from a recipe that didn't turn out the way you hoped, just search cooking fails on Instagram and you will be comforted.
In nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti.
And that's our episode for today. I'm your host, Jesse Bourgeois. Thank you all so much for watching. If you tried this process out, I would love to hear how it goes. Let me know in the comments. I respond to every single one. And if you want to support the channel, please do subscribe and hit the thumbs up. It's tough for small channels to reach an audience, so every watch, every comment, every subscriber, and every thumbs up means a lot. So thank you so much to those of you who do that. And if you want to connect in a less formal way and see a bit of the behind the scenes of all of this, head over to Instagram. Thank you again. Talk with you next time.